Hello everyone, and welcome again to another episode of my podcast. Hello on YouTube if you're watching. Thanks for tuning in again. You know me, I'm Alex, and I'm delighted to welcome the beautiful mind that is Simon Marshall. I've been following Simon on Twitter for a while now. We have our own little Twitter group going on, and Simon is all things digital marketing, primarily in kind of legal and professional services, but he's all things data. As I said, think beautiful mind, and Simon's insight is second to none around all of this. And I think law is kind of his focus. I think anybody listening to this can absolutely learn what you can do to start to think differently, behave differently based on how you leverage data and data insights from your website. So enough about me waffling on. Simon, over to you. A bit of your backstory, a bit of your background, and let's see where this takes us.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for having me along today. I've been lucky enough to work over the last 20 years at quite a few law firms. Previously, I worked in sales and marketing, and legal sector is notable, I think, for having an endless amount of demand of marketing things it wants to do, loads of money with which to do it as well. I mean, it's not an unwealthy sector, but equally, sometimes can just base its decisions on hunches and gut instincts. And so a couple of years ago, after I set up my own agency and having worked on loads of different web projects and all manner of communications projects and business development things as well, I thought it'd be good to look at how do we use data to inform our decision making a bit better. You still need a hunch, right? I'm not going to get away from that. Great marketing people have got really good instincts, but my sense is that we can hone down the options by using a bit of data and make better educated guesses about where to invest. That's going to be really important for the next couple of years, where no matter what industry you're in, it's quite likely you're going to see a bit of contraction as a result of everything that's gone on in the economy, and you need to gain market share. You're going to take that off competitors. So we need to maybe take some of the other options off the table in terms of our marketing, really focus our energies around the things that are going to produce profitable growth for the business, as it were, as well. And I think that data plays a role in that. It's really interesting because as soon as you start saying data, everyone turns off and thinks it's going to be really boring as a talk. But, I sit here sometimes in the evening crunching through people's, social media or their website data, and I find out things that I wonder if they know about their own business. I mean, I don't know about you, Alex, but I want to know, like, how far did this tweet go? Yeah, it's rather disappointing. I did the analytics a few months ago and found out that, the one that had 150,000 impressions was about my cat, obviously, right? And it's, there are days when you think, I can't believe it's that. And then, a couple of political opinions as well. But, if you don't know what's working, then how do you know to do more of it? And if you don't know why it worked, I mean, you're very good at making sure that people understand the technicalities of how to be themselves and be present and use the social platform to its maximum and its optimum. But people, I fail to do that on a regular basis. I don't optimize it, don't think about that because I'm behaving in a very natural human way. But actually, if you just say to me, look, use a hashtag. Right, it's gonna take you further. Or it used to be work that you tag in some friends or whatever it might be in a social post, and that would take it further as well. But actually, there are things there that data tells us this works and this doesn't work. Maybe this works at an organizational level, and this works for you as an individual, right? And data allows us to kind of spot different trends and themes. Let me give you a really good example.
That'd be good.
For years in life, when I was working in house in marketing, I really hated the idea of taking clients off to rugby matches. It's always a thing you got asked all the time, or Wimbledon, right? Wimbledon, can we get some Wimbledon tickets? Yeah, let's spend £11,000 on 2 tickets to the men's semi-finals, right? And it just seems like
people
crazy.
We already know who probably aren't going to give us any more business.
Well, the thing is that when someone comes back to you and shows you the data and says, wait a minute, this is a proportionate use of budget for somebody who gives us the level of... Now, that is a sensible way to approach a CMO and say, I can justify this marketing expense. So the data, I know we're going to talk about website data, social media data, but I love data, a bit like Sidley are doing, taking data all the way across the enterprise. What are we doing from all the way at the beginning for audiences we don't know at all to people that we know and work for regularly, and that we want to encourage them to advocate for people to use our business again, right? And if you can use data to, I think the word you're probably going to say today is attribution, really to attribute what is happening all the way across that sales cycle, then I think that we can really all up our game.
I think you're absolutely right, and I'm learning about this on a daily basis. And you take the point you made very kindly about me and LinkedIn. When people ask me around, well, is LinkedIn Premium worth paying for? I said, well, it's like anything in life. If you don't use what it gives you, then it's a waste of time. But we refer to it as random acts of social. There's no point. There's great posting stuff, but how do you know where it's going? So use the data, that social media post that you created, and understand, is it landing in the right news feeds, and is it landing with the right job titles? And now we know LinkedIn gives you pretty basic indications of what this is doing, but there's no point getting very excited. And this is why I get employee advocacy tools in terms of, I think they can lead you down false positives, telling you internally you're getting lots of engagement, but then look on the post on LinkedIn and it's all other law firms or people from your own industry, other salespeople that are engaging with that post, not your intended audience. So we kind of take a step back from all of this. Data comes from multiple sources today. You've already mentioned two things. So website and social media. Let's start with the website, because most people kind of understand what a website is and what it's meant to do. So what are the things that people, whether you're BD, a lawyer, a salesperson, marketing, doesn't really matter. What are the things they should be thinking about around what the website should be doing, and how can you start to access the data?
Such a great question. I mean, for me, let's just get a couple of facts out on the table. First, right? People don't come to your website through the homepage. Not in the majority. About 16 or 70% of web traffic, 16 or 17% will come through the homepage.
Right.
But we'll design a website so as if everyone comes through the front door. Yeah. We've got people climbing through the windows. We've got people coming through the side entrance, right? They're going to come in. Now, why and how do they do that? People who already know your brand, they come through that front door because they know, whiteandcase.com or alanovery.com. They go straight to it, right? People who don't know you have done a web search for something on Google, because that Google owns the audience of all the people we don't really know. And that is about 75% of the world out there, right? And then the bit in between those two is social. Those are the three really big constituent parts for your traffic. Email, along with social, will make up the remaining kind of percentages there. So we design websites for that, right? For starters. And that's already a misstep, because the first thing that really attracts people to websites is great content. Okay, for many years, you'll have heard it as well. For 20 years, content is king. Everyone says content is king, but they don't behave like content is a king. Right. So what do I mean by that? You create great content. You do these videos, you do all your updates, you do your social media posts. I try and emulate that as well, and try and do some things that are interesting to people. And hopefully people come in and they read that piece, and at the bottom of that piece, it might be a call to action. There might be something, either read another piece or contact Si, or, I don't know, share it with someone, right? Really simple kind of actions in a way. And so if we think about that journey for an unknown audience, let's think about their intention for a minute. I've got a problem. I've searched on Google. How do I grow my business? How do I use acquisition finance to grow my business? Suddenly there's a search result. I click on a law firm's legal update or technical update, and I read this thing. All we want that user to do is spend a bit of time in front of our brand, reading it, preferably more than 2 minutes, right? We'll come to, don't let me forget to come back to that as well. It's really important, the amount of time, eyeball time that we've got. And then we want them to take an action at the end. Now, if we don't know them from Adam, if they've not met White and Case or Alan Overy before, then what is the likelihood that they're going to call a partner after reading one article? I would suggest relatively small. So the primary call to action on those pages for a new user coming in might well be read another piece or sign up to our newsletter. It's pretty boring. I'm going to talk about this over the next few weeks in some other webinars that I do, but the only action that we're trying to do with an unknown audience is turn them into a known audience. So if we don't know who they are or where they've come from, the only thing that we've got to do as digital marketers is know something about them. What's their email address? Where do they work? And then the next time they come back, they're a known audience and we can treat them differently. So we can start sending them things to bring them, right? So part of the answer to your question immediately has to be, how long are they spending on that page? What's the total read time? What's the average read time for those web updates? Now, Alex, I don't know how many of these things you've looked at, but I've read thousands of those updates over the years. And I have to say, some of the most phenomenal, we're very lucky in the UK and it's very easy to dismiss it, but we get some phenomenal updates on a regular basis in a very timely fashion.
Yeah.
On very complex subject matters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to dismiss that as long and boring. But one challenge is that they are sometimes just too long. 5,000 words on the latest thinking around X and Y and Z.
Yeah.
When the average read time on that page is 2 minutes, it doesn't compute.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to read, I don't know if you know, but the average read speed is 200 words a minute. It's about the same that I speak at.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, if we take 5,000 words, that's a 25-minute read.
Yeah, yeah.
So it better be blinking interesting.
So good, exactly. It's interesting because obviously some on web pages, I've even noticed the link, sorry to interject, but LinkedIn now, other sites, and they actually now tell you
they do
6-minute read, 12-minute read. And if you think so, like 12 minutes, I haven't got 12 minutes to read this, so I might just skim over it.
And, you know, when I was at Osborne Clark, we introduced some snippets at the top of the page to tell, we'd say, you know, this is roughly how long this piece is. It's of interest to, it's written for, and these people, and if it was someone, if a general counsels are going to sit and spend their lunchtime reading it, brown bagging, I think the Americans call it, where you have your lunch in front of the screen and read this thing, is the CFO going to do that? You know, probably not. So provide, Simmons did this very well. They used to have tear sheet version for sales guys, for CFOs. This is what you need to know in 60 seconds. And that worked both ways. You can take this back to the GC or the GC can give it to you, right? Very clever. So that's quite a really good example. Two different audiences, different read times, perfectly valid. GC, quite happy to spend 25 minutes. First thing that private practice lawyers and GCs do is think that everyone else is like them and will sit and read a document for 25 minutes and read every single footnote that goes with it, right? And we both know that people read in Fs. They read a title, they read a subhead, they read the first paragraph, then they scan down the page to find something else that interests them, and then they read across. That's called reading in an F. You do that down the page, right? So we can get data that tells us how long people spend on the page, how they look at the page, where they're clicking, are they trying to do something as well. That data is really useful. We take it back to our authors, technical writers, the people who write for those legal updates, or if you're Pinson Masons, you know, frankly, ex-journalists, you know, and I think OC's got a few of them as well. And we go back to them and say, people aren't getting to the bottom of your article, which means they're never clicking on the call to action. What can we do to optimize that? Now, you know, do you want more bit? Do you want more? Do you want to read more? Or do you want to take action instead? Because, you know, oh, am I broadly right? Yeah, I am. I'm going to contact that guy. Am I broadly right? Yeah, I'm going to sign up to email. Nothing wrong with that. Am I broadly right? I don't know. I want to read a bit more. Give them an option. Right? Let them make that choice as well. So that you asked me what data can do, and I think it's a great example of around half your web traffic, maybe a bit more, will be on your knowledge update.
Okay.
Right. And so if you don't optimize that part of your website for how long people are spending on there, how easy it is to share it with other people, how optimized it is for attracting people in and then answering a question that they've actually got, not a question that is a sidestep from it. Right. That's so important because Google, looking ahead, is really looking to please audiences with this page experience change that's coming next year. You've probably technically heard it called user intent. So Alex is on the web and he's looking for, you know, a marketing agency for law firms, maybe based in Bristol. And guess what? You know, his intent is to interview one for a blog post, not necessarily to instruct one, because he doesn't work at a law firm, right? And Google works out his intent and then points him in the right direction. And it does that by virtue of what he's looking for and how he searches and the phrases that he uses, right? Law firms need to think more, not just law firms, any organization, anyone, accountants. I've done their rankings, by the way.
Okay, good.
Very interesting.
Look forward to that.
Very interesting.
Look forward to that.
I'm going to tell you a funny thing about that in a minute, right? But they need to think more about the intent of the person when they come to the page. So somebody who already knows you has a different intent to the person who doesn't.
How do you find that out? How do you actually understand? How can a firm understand what their existing audience is already doing and the new audience is doing? Is it Google Analytics? Are there other tools out there? Because for some listeners, this may be, and I speak to leaders in organizations across all industry, and I talk about this not in a sophisticated and articulate way as you do, but a lot of this is just straight over people's heads. They don't really kind of understand this is the new world order. So where does somebody even begin to start to interrogate and find this information?
Such a good question. Let's break it down then. So
Yeah.
known audiences are going to come from email
Yeah.
or social media.
Okay.
So when they come in, if the email might have been forwarded to some random extra person, but they still know something about your organization. The social media might have been clicked on, a third degree connection, right? But broadly, those two sources should be served with content that are, in the head of the author. I already know something about the firm.
Yeah.
Right. And in a way, in the back end, in the data thing, we can actually say we're going to attribute this traffic to this campaign that we ran. There's some very clever technical things. I'm not going to go into it too much for your audience, but any digital marketing manager worth their salt should be able to attribute they came to this page. Now that is not the same page. And if we think about how consumer brands use digital marketing, you won't land on the same page if you have not ever engaged with the brand before. If you're not on their email marketing, if you're not part of their social media followers, right, you'll come in from a different page, and that immediately allows you to split that traffic. So that's part of the answer, is we've got to set it up the right way. The other thing that I think I'm a great believer in this, in using more EQ in how we approach our marketing as well, right? So let's go back to Alex's issue of wanting to appoint a marketing agency or look for one in Bristol, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't even know that was an option, and you said, are there any, if you asked the question, are there any marketing agencies in Bristol?
Yeah.
You're asking a very open, early stage question. And the answer to that question is really just informational. Yes, there are, and there are 10 of them, and, there's Conscious Solutions, and then there's Sci, and whatever, right? You can do that piece of work. And, but thinking about the questions that people ask and the answers and where they are in the buying journey, different questions get asked. Are you asking an informational question that's just about awareness? I didn't know I had a problem. I didn't know there was a solution to this problem. Then how do I begin to solve the problem? What are my options? This is your traditional AIDA kind of awareness, whatever action at the other end, right? The 4 stages of the buying journey. And we need to, law firm content is designed in a slightly homogenous way. Not all law firms, but I'd say out of the 100 that I analyze, 95 of them approach it in I've got something I want to talk about.
All law firms.
Right? And I would highlight the work that are done, particularly in personal injury, medical negligence. Other people can get really sniffy about that area and say, well, they have to do it that way. It's bound to be. It's a consumer facing thing. Right, they have to do it because there's no other way to win business. But on the flip side, they're very, very sophisticated at converting audiences from, we don't know who the heck you are, we don't even know we've got a problem, I didn't even know how to write to sue anyone, through to, I'm signed up and you're my lawyers, right? Now, you can go and look up those brand names yourself, but you know who they are in that top 100. There's about 5 of them that excel at it. In fact, there's one that is about 180th by revenue, and it's about 30th by digital marketing. It absolutely smashes it out of the park, because they understand how to take an audience and convert them into a paying customer. And I think that we need to stop thinking that doesn't happen on corporate commercial, not just at law firms, accountants firms. I think it happens when we need a sports massage. I think it happens when we need to buy a teacup. I think why professional services think it needs to be different? Or what if we just applied some of that methodology and just tested it and worked out, can we get Alex closer to shortlisting TBD as one of his marketing agencies? Yes, we can. How are we going to do that? We're going to use, his thought process is going to go through to appoint an agency and then do that. So, I'm trying to think about the last time I appointed a web agency to do that stuff myself, and I was in-house. And, we started out by just saying you have to have won an award in the last year for some of your web work. And that, that culled a big list quite quickly down. But that you already knew that on some level, there was something about them, right? And we used data to cull the list. And then we said to them, do you want to apply to be, on the thing? Some of them just came back and said, no, you're too small, or you're too big, or it's not for us, or we're too busy. And actually, the people who were then left were really interested in being involved. And I think if all of us in professional services can think a bit more about, we talk about it all the time, but really spend some time thinking about what people are thinking about when they're appointing consultants, right? Then they'll get more out of it. Now, you're going to say to me, come on, Si, we've got 2,000 web pages going on here every year, right? And all these updates. I'm not saying you should do it for all 2,000 of those pages.
Yeah,
That's not realistic.
No,
Not yet, right? That's not realistic. But what about if we took our top 2% of performing pages and tweaked them so they just worked harder? What if we're ranking third on Google for something and we can move it to first? Is that a big difference?
Yeah.
In traffic terms, that is moving from around about 2 to 10% of traffic up to about 55% of all clicks. So the gain, if we do grab that first place by optimizing our page, by thinking about the page experience, by answering the questions that people really want to have answered, we will get 5-fold number of people coming through the front door.
And is that people having to pay for words, or that's purely just optimization? So it's just Google just puts it at the top. Was it a blend?
That's a good question. I mean, is there a valid place for PPC? Of course there is, right? It leads to leads. If it weren't, then people wouldn't be paying 50 quid for a medical negligence case, pay per click. If you're in a bankrupt firm, then just repeatedly click on their links, of course. But do I believe? Don't do that. But don't do that. But do I believe that you can use organic to gain? Yeah, I do, because I think that very few of those people in the commercial world are going to make an appointment on the basis of one single click, and therefore how many times you've got to pay for them to come through to the site. So it's much better to use organic if you can. The other thing, of course, is that Google wants you to have a collection of related materials. A bit like you've got an area of expertise, and you talk about that area of expertise all the time. So all the words, all the phrases, all the language that relates to it, it's all cross-pollinating across your website, your social. They're all pointing at similar kind of things. And Google says this isn't a one-off spike that we're going to treat as like, there's a page that Alex has written that's so well written that we're going to really reward it. It says instead we're going to give him a lift, a really big lift, because he writes about it consistently and he answers all the questions. Now look, I'm going to give you a tip here. If you're a digital marketing manager and listen to this, you want to know what is the public thinking, go on to answerthepublic.com.
Okay.
Type in whatever your keyword is that you want to do. So digital marketing agency. And that website will give you 10 free hits a day, and it will give you a list of real people's questions that they ask in relation to that subject matter. Now, I'm really going to give you something big here. This is beautiful. I'm being very generous here. If you then structure your page so that it answers those questions. Now, the H1, the top of the page, right? That's got to be the best keyword that relates to that. And as I wrote recently, Beyonce is the queen of SEO because she says to the left. And every time you push keywords to the left, further back up the URL, you'll get a higher reward, right? That's the data tells us that's the case, right?
Yeah.
So if we get it right there and we put it in the title, and then we use those questions that real people ask. Alex wants to know how many digital agencies are there in Bristol, and what kind of digital agencies are there in Bristol? All of the related questions. You answer those questions. Google spots that Q&A and it says, wait a minute, these guys are taking it so seriously. The next time somebody asks that question, let's give it a try. We're going to surface this page in the result. There's no such thing as a set result for Google. The parameters work on all different things, but it gives something a try. And if that person reads that page and hangs around for a few minutes and reads it and they like it, and Google sees the data and thinks, oh, great, then it will surface it again and again and again, right? And then it thinks, wait a minute, this person, they really are answering people's questions here.
Yeah.
And they've updated the page and they've taken it really seriously. So I would encourage all the digital marketing managers, any of your clients, any of my clients, to go back and look at what their top 2% of all their web performing pages, and go and Google the phrases on that page. Go and have a look for where are they? Where do they rank? What are their competitors doing on their versions of that pages that are better than yours? You know who's really good at this? Pins and Masons, right? That's because they've had Outlaw for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. They know how to write for audiences, because journalists would, write that way. Very informative. But under Fred's work that he did last year, they actually pulled the old knowledge site into the main site. So the brochure site, the how to contact our people, and the knowledge site were put together. Guess what? Boom, traffic. Yeah. Combined traffic for the site, and its authority goes through the roof, because they were doing all their knowledge in one place and they were doing all of their other stuff over here. So all the data is now combined. And, you can say, I've read that piece, now I know who to call. I've read that piece, I know who to instruct. Yeah, I think that's the other thing, because you're asking me really about the data side of things. that people neglect is, I don't know why they do. Everyone's heard of Google Analytics, and they put the code on their website. And I think it was you that said to me the other day, do they actually analyze it afterwards? Well, I do that for people. So look, if you don't want to analyze it yourself, pay me a bit of money every month and I'll analyze it for you. Not from the perspective of telling you the figures. Anyone can do that. I'm going to tell you what to do about this.
That's the key thing,
right?
That's the thing.
But here's the beautiful thing. If you combine it with Search Console, which is Google's view of you on search engines, you've probably got this set up for your site as well. It tells you, you know, when Alex was looking for that digital marketing agency, they put TBD up. How many times did I get surfaced? How many times did I get produced in the top 10 search results? And where did I rank? And how many times did people actually click through for me, right? So then I start spotting phrases that I haven't got anything written about on my website, but my brand is being shown up for it. Now, guess, you know, my brand is TBD, so I turn up for the phrase TBD. Okay, not massively helpful, right? But, you know, time for a rebrand. It's almost as if I need a digital marketing agency. that list that Google will give you in this package called Search Console, which is free, will tell you all the phrases that real people, I would suggest they are all potential customers.
Yeah.
There might be some law firm students, there might be some accountancy students, they might be those things, but even then, they're still potential customers. You start tying what you're producing content-wise with that stuff. Yeah. And Google will love you because it'll think you've actually noted and tied those two things. So I've started the reports I do for people, tie those two things together. It says, look, this is what real people are looking for. This is what you're producing. Can we bridge that gap? Can we do it with your best content? And here's some ideas for some new content, right? And we start encouraging them to do that. And what results have we had? Asked someone to make a small change on their website back in November. They had to have put one of those web certificates, you know, the HTTPS on their site, and their traffic quadrupled overnight. I asked someone to change how Google indexes their website the other day. They got a 3% bump in one day. They're already getting a lot of traffic. Look, these health and hygiene tweaks, they're just to get in the game. You know, you're in
it's just like level 1.
but and some of these firms have really grabbed it. I mean, we're seeing the emergence of a real digital elite. Yeah. And I think there are 7 to 10 firms that are taking it really seriously, and that are beyond those questions about will it lead to leads or you know, why do we need to, they're way beyond that. Because they're using data to show to people. I can't sell anything to them, Alex, in terms of data. They don't want my data, right? They're already doing it. Great, you know. And so all I can do is celebrate the successes that those guys are having, and I think it's wonderful. Now I talk to them about what's next, and that's where it gets even more interesting. Yeah. But there are still loads of firms there, and then, you know, what's really interesting is when the firms in the second 100 get it. You know, the one I mentioned earlier, who's in the 170th, and they're using data and analytics and optimization to overtake 140 firms in front of them. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think if I've managed to have some of my clients rank, who are just small firms, rank way ahead of themselves, and it's just joyous. You know, when you see, so you know, when your client rings you and says, "Well, I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing it right because we're busier than we've ever been," you think, well. That's it, isn't it?
Waving my magic wand. But that's the beauty of digital, right? Is that you can be a small firm but play on a global stage and be, if you know what you're doing, you can be number one. And Simon Kemp's latest data reports that came out, 51% of the world is now on social media. And I think that takes me back to your point around we all optimize our websites to be we're coming in from the front door. Whereas actually actually what you're saying ties back to what Gartner was saying 2 years ago, that just because offline starts doesn't mean online ends. And that what they refer to is that your customers now want multiple entry points. They want multiple entry points into you as a brand. And I completely agree with you that this is when I talk to partners. I said, 1 minute your general counsel is an app which works really nicely, really, really well. The next thing, they get a crappy piece of email marketing that doesn't render properly on a mobile device, so they click on a link, doesn't work, or the website's not a good user experience. They're going to go away to someone that is. And again, this is the crazy thing that we've been talking about for so long. This is like 2017, I think. Back to your point around we can't fix 2,000 pages. And it was a CMO, she's still at IBM, she's now over in the States, said we were trying to, IBM, we were trying to grapple that exact same challenge. And a salesperson said to the marketing team, why are we trying to fix the website? We know this is typically what an entry product is from IBM. We then know from our sales data that when a company buys this is the time frame that typically they then go on to buy this, and that over this time period. So fix those pages and let's guide that journey just on those, because we have the data from invoices, because we know that's what people do. And sure, accounting firms, law firms should have some data around.
Well, and let's talk about the barriers to that.
Go here.
Let's talk about the barriers to that for a minute. There is no shame in attributing a lead, in my view, to a website. None. But there is, if you've got matter partner billings being a condition on which you bonus. You have no vested interest as a partner of saying this website gave me my lead.
Yeah.
When fundamentally what you really mean is I wrote an article that the website gave me the lead for. Right? Now, one of the partners I work with, and I really can't name the firm or
of course,
name the partner, came up to me and said, I want to say thank you to you for all the work you've done. It's a while back, obviously, so I don't work in-house now, because I can directly attribute this £50,000 piece of work to the thing that we did over there last week. Wonderful. But this is, you only get that level of confidence when somebody is not going to be, they're just so good at their job, they don't have to worry about it, right? He was safe in his job, so he's not going to worry about it. But I think there's more to be done on the reward systems and recognition and attribution. I'm working with some firms at the moment that are really struggling with their digital talent. They've got one or two people, you probably saw that crazy social media update the other day on Twitter that just said this guy, if you're in the front line of Twitter on behalf of a brand, what are you? You're kind of like brand police, you're, a counselor, you're a policeman, you're all these things, a bit like a teacher. You've got to be so multifaceted. And actually, then we just say, can you come straight out of college and do that? What? Wait a minute. These guys are the front line of the brand.
Yeah.
IBM takes its sales so seriously that you've got to be a senior doer at something before they'll let you in the sales team. You better be good at something before they'll to customers about actually buying anything, right? I think that firms could do a bit more of that. Now, what's that going to involve? A lot of that talent you were talking about earlier, highly paid business development managers saying, hands up, I don't know enough about this. But I know that if I did know a bit more about it, we'd make more money, right? And I think we need to press the reset button on that conversation to enable people to say, look, it's an amnesty. I didn't know that I needed to know as much about it as I do. Now, data in their roles at the moment. Let's think about a key account program. You're in-house, you know what people have spent, you know how many hours on the clock people have spent, off the clock, how many hours people have spent. Hopefully you collect enough data to show to them, this is how invested we are in a relationship, right? So those key account managers, those BD managers, they're getting used to using data more and more to inform their decisions, certainly about their larger, the 80-20 larger clients. They just need to be able to say, where did the client come from? Who gave us this client? I've used the example before, so forgive me if you've heard it, but as I said a while ago, there was a client who somebody wanted to take to Wimbledon, and I was really resistant about it. And I couldn't understand where we were coming from. They convinced me that it was a sector client, and then we needed to do more of this kind of sectoral work to win more of that kind of client. But when we actually really narrowed it all the way down, we just found it was one individual at one place that was responsible for 90% of the subsector's revenue. And so our marketing strategy changed because it was no longer about trying to use sectoral approach and grab a broader brand and take control of the issues. It actually was about taking one guy out and saying, can you find another guy in your business who's like you, who can instruct us the same amount of revenue? Because then you double it. And guess what? Going to Wimbledon with that guy, that's got a pretty good return on investment. And we could have spent months and years of energy chasing a sector plan that just was pointless. So I think using that data, offline data, it's really useful to make good decisions about all elements of the marketing journey. Isn't it great if you go to an event and it feels like it's really well run, but actually, isn't it even better if you come away from it knowing which business gets attributed to that event? And that isn't that hard to do.
No.
And certainly you need to have some attention to detail afterwards to say who's responsible for following up with who and how can you get in front of them. And I think that, like I said earlier, Sidley appear to be doing it, where they're threading that data all the way through from we don't know them all the way through to regular advocate for our business at the other end. And I think the firms have got a journey to go on. I think they need to do it over the course of the next couple of years, because you know what's going to happen otherwise. Linklaters, Slaughters, Kirkland, they're going to get it right.
Yeah. And
once they've got it right, then that's quite scary for other firms to try and emulate. You don't want to be on the back foot dealing with that.
No, especially in the current climate where everything's online, right?
And we need to gain market share. We've got a contracting market. Everything's online. You can't go and, have coffees with people in the same way you could. You can't go to an event and just bump into them and network. We've got to find ways for spending time with each other and give something away for free.
Indeed. Yeah. And I think this is interesting in terms of, if you look at the overall direction of travel of CRM systems around the data analytics that now you can get with this CRM to start to predict client relationships, to start to understand where revenue is tailing off. These are the people you then need to go and talk to because you've synced LinkedIn with it. You have Sales Navigator. You then go, and please go and encourage your marketing team to start chucking their data into all of this, and suddenly you get this holistic view of what's going on. And it goes back to an article I read back in 2017. She was a LinkedIn exec. I think she's now at Cisco, and she tweeted it's something I paraphrase now, Katrina Neal is her name, any marketing exec that goes into a data-driven board meeting and starts their sentence with the word "I think" will probably be asked to leave. And this is back in 2017, because if you've got an executive team who start to understand all of this shouldn't be "I think." I know that we should do this because I can see X, Y, Z. Notwithstanding your earlier point, I completely agree. Experience and that hunch, that kind of gut instinct, but blended with, I've now got data to prove we should be doing this. Shortened sales cycles, better content strategy, better return on investment, and the list goes on. Simon, I could talk to you for ever and a day on this. Always love watching your Digital 100. Looking forward to the accountants coming up. Where can people find you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Not the front door of your website, I guess.
Well, no. The best place to hang out is on social. So you find me on LinkedIn, / Simon Paul Marshall. Find me on Twitter at CEO_TBD. If you like, though, and you're a firm and you want to know what your numbers are on the kind of traffic rankings, just drop me a line, because we add new firms all the time to the ranking. We started producing daily rankings now for people. The future for us, of course, has to be data driven, and we're going to move to an API model where this stuff is up to the minute. Cool. So you'll be able to press a button and know where you stand today. So yeah, come and find us, and we'd love to share more of that info.
Awesome. And if you listen to this and you find Simon, I'll put the links to his profiles on the podcast and the vlog on YouTube. Please mention this. I encourage everybody to at least have a conversation with him, because what he does not know about this is not worth knowing. But for the time being, Simon, really appreciate your time today. Everybody's watching. If there's anybody you should recommend to be on this, let me know. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. But as always, stay well, keep safe, and I'll catch everybody on the flip side next week. Cheers, Simon.